Hello, Liesel.
Hello, hi.
It's good to see you. Good to see you. Hi, Leon. Is it Elaine? Elaine, yeah. Here we go. Let's see if I can get more people, see more people at a time. There we go. This is better, yeah. Okay, so we're a full five, six, seven people. So, Leon, hoe gaat het? Are you good? Are you well? This is the actual training video, so you don't need to just put it up and do something else, huh? Well, say, is it Valmarie?
Hello.
Hi, Valmarie, how are you?
Good, thanks. And yourself?
Very good, very good. Thank you very much. So we're sitting on 10 people. There we go. Oh, okay, I've got my view right. There we go. So, yeah, I'm actually talking to you from the Middle East. I'm sitting in Bahrain at the moment. So, if the sound isn't very well and there's an aircon blowing in my ear here, you must excuse me. We're going to try to do the best we can. Um, Good. Awesome. Where's everybody from? Henry? Oh no, Henry is from us. Sorry. Here we go. People are streaming in. Liesel, where are you from? Where do you sit at the moment?
I actually stay in Stellenbosch, so
Oh,
I'm here.
fantastic. So that's as
Yes,
local as you can get, although the business school
yes.
isn't in Stellenbosch. There we go. Miguel, how are you, man?
Good evening, Connie. I'm good, and yourself?
Very good, man. Good to see you. Where you from? Where you tuning in
I'm
from?
from Brackenfell, Cape Town.
Brackenfell, all the locals. Wilmarie, same thing.
Uh,
Where are you from?
I guess ook van Brackenfell.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and Miguel, this whole week we've been saying the same thing.
That's cool. That's cool. Let me just put this a bit louder. There we go, so I can hear you guys a bit better. Cliff, how you doing, Cliff? Are you good?
Very good.
There we
How
go.
are
Cliff,
you?
where you from, my friend?
Oh, Cape Town.
Cape Town. Is there anybody
Yeah.
that's not from Cape Town online? Nathan, where you from, Nathan? Okay, Nathan is still watching Netflix while we getting ready for the. There we go, guys. Awesome. So we're still streaming in. Let's give another few minutes for everybody to join, and then we can get started. From Pretoria. Well, Pretoria is quite far, huh? That's almost like another country there. You've got a blue passport with a bull on, huh? On the Pretorian passport.
No, no, not really.
I know. I'm sure you are a strong Stormers supporter, like everybody else. I'm sure, huh?
Yes, yes, I am.
No, this week we're just allowed to talk about the Springboks. That's all we're allowed to talk about.
All
Wow,
right,
what a show!
thanks.
What a show last week! Unbelievable, man. That's
Yes,
it's so good to
very
see
well.
everybody on form. It's going to be interesting what's happening this week because there was some stuff that happened like that against us. So we really hope it does not turn around again. I'm full of
Yes,
hope. I'm full of hope.
no, all well.
Yeah. There we go. Naomi, how are you? Is it Noni?
Noni.
Noni, how are you from? How are you? I think she's still trying to figure out with the two names. There we
Uh,
go.
yes, I'm Noni from Pretoria.
Pretoria. Wow, the Pretorians are well represented today. Well represented. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is 5 past, so I think we want to get started. We don't want to have a long evening. I can introduce myself quickly. I'm Kuni Nel. I'm the head of project management at the business school. So I've got two main responsibilities. Number one is the PGD, which you guys are tuned in to hear a bit more about, maybe, or to think about. And then I also look after you can almost call it the MBA project management leg within the business school. So that's my responsibility. I also facilitate some classes, although not all. We use great people like Mr. Kyle, who's joining us, who's visiting and joining from the industry to help us, with the classes and with the modules and so forth. So we try to get everything as practical and as industry, with industry experience and exposure to help us with the classes and the modules that we are doing. So, yeah, guys, my style is always very informal. So you would see I'm saying hello to you from all the way from, I've been working in Saudi Arabia for the week. And they've got a different work week over here. So we finished this morning with our classes, and I came over the causeway to visit my sister who's actually in Bahrain. So it's weekend in the Middle East, and I'm sitting here in their house. So I've got my laptop, and I'm very, very ad hoc set up over here. So excuse if my video is maybe not that good, or if everything doesn't work that well. Yeah, so that is sort of the introductions. Mr. Kyle, if you give me a moment, let me just quickly do the introduction and maybe some more info about the PGD, and then I will introduce you more formally. The idea or the agenda, if you want to call it that, it's not formal enough to call it an agenda, but is that I'm just going to give you a few slides about PGD and what that means, what that entails at the business school. I understand there was a general session of the business school also, which some of you attended, which give you a bit more of the, I almost want to say, the administrative background and all of those things. So I'm going to make it as sweet and short as possible. Feel free any moment, even if I'm talking, to interrupt me and ask a question if you have anything. I don't want to give you a information overload. I'll rather give you information that's needed, and then you can always ask us if possible. We also have online Mr. Henry, who is from our marketing department and recruiting. So he will also be able to answer questions if it's something that I might not be able to answer. And then the idea is then after that is Kyle is working at the City of Cape Town. And we just want to talk about rescuing a project, just so that we can, just brainstorm around that a bit and hear what's going on in the industry and sort of, make it a bit more practical as well. Okay, but before we get there, let me just, you can all see my presentation, the background over there. Okay, great. So let me just see how I get this to work. Okay, great. So there we go. It's the PGD, the Postgrad Diploma in Project Management at the Business School. And the question is why project management? Why a postgrad diploma? Why business school and why project management? Now, so I'm actually engineering from background. I did my master's degree in my MBA as well, and I saw both worlds. And from a business point of view, I would say the benefit that you will get from, it's not a benefit. I mean, it's a choice. No? I mean, if you want to go that route, is we have to remember that we are seated within a business school. So what's nice about, or what's different, or what's interesting about this module or this the degree, yeah, there we go, is the fact that you are sitting in an environment where you are integrated within the business aspects of project management as well. So the best way I always describe the PGD in project management, and one of our colleagues developed this from ground upwards, is to call it a MBA in project management. Now the MBA, our MBA is a very good program, and I'm not going to undercut that. But even the MBA in project management is actually a normal MBA with a few extra project management modules connected to that to sort of distinguish that a bit from the normal MBA. But this over here is really from the ground upwards. It's saying we have a focus on project management. So we do look at all the technical aspects and the technical issues about project management, but we also come with a leadership management, I want to say, an integrative mindset when we look at project management within the business school. So I would say that's really nice if you are thinking about, if you are working in a project environment, you might be going to management at a certain stage, or to a role like a PMO manager or a portfolio manager or a program manager, or even just a manager or a higher level manager within a project-based organization. It will give you those management skills to integrate the value of project management within the organization. Okay, so that's why we are here. The PGD also give you there's a route towards the MBA as well. So so there's credits and all sorts of stuff that if you want to know a bit more about. So there's a route that you can take to that degree as well. Okay, so I'm going to go a bit quicker. You know about the business school. This is the stuff that you've seen before. Very good name in the industry. The business school, very good name in the industry. And like I said, we try to back that up with not just great facilitators, great lecturers, but lecturers and facilitators that's still one leg in the industry that can bring more to the table than just academic work. So that's the idea that we want to instill, and that's the idea that we want to bring to our students. It feels uncomfortable to call MBA students. I've been talking to industry experts, the whole, industry practitioners the whole week, and so I call them delegates, not students. So I almost want to say, on your level, we can't call you students anymore, because I see Stellenbosch students running around with their flip-flops on main campus. Okay, guys, so this is just set up to show you how the module, or how the degree is structured, the variations on that, and then also how that's integrated within the PGD in business management as well. So there's two PGD, well, there's actually more than one PGDs running. But we are very closely linked to the PGD in management. And if you look at this structure over here, we have term 1 to 8. So 1 to 4 and 1 to 4. So this is structured. This is shown as the 2-year structure. Okay, so let's start at the top, and then we start moving our way, our route through there. The green modules is the modules that you will take. Not all the green modules are solely purposed or used for the MBAs. It's also used as a general modules as well. So if we start at the top, it's responsible leadership. Leadership is important not just for project management, but for any business orientated degree or certification in that. So everybody's doing project leadership, or not project, responsible leadership. So it's a fixed module. Then in the second term, and guys, I'm going to call it terms now, and then I'm going to talk about the variation to the 2-year format, and also the variations in the 2-year format after this. So just sort of assume that this is now the 2-year structure. Then in your second term, you'll do again another general module, which is understanding the world. And I want to say, if you bring that back to projects and project management, you'll probably say, it's understanding. It's stakeholder understanding, but more than just the stakeholders, also the organizations and the world outside of your organization that you need to understand and need to know about. And I think it's very valuable for a project manager to know and to do that. Then in term 3, there are actually 3 modules.
I mean,
yes. Is there a question? Okay, no question. Okay, so on the term 3, there's 3 modules. The business people, well, they can actually choose project management as well, but we have to do managing projects, and managing projects is our base module. It is if I say base, it says it's a program that take you from A to B in a functional way of saying, what is project management, what is the tools and techniques, what is the process of that, and how do you deal with projects. So I always say, when you go out of that module, you will be able to help yourself in pretty much any type of projects. You'll know what the tools are, you'll know what the techniques are, and you'll know what the process is to follow, and you'll pretty much be able to help yourself. Then we go over to the third term, and there is actually 2 modules that we can also choose from as well. So you can do the organizational behavior side or the managing risks. We try to sort of drift you towards the risk side, because risk is obviously a very strong part of project management and linked to that. Then we go in the second year, we go into the pure project management, I want to say funnel or route. So in the second year, you'll do communication management in your first year, in your first term. Then you will do procurement contracting. Then you will do scheduling, advanced scheduling. So over there, we do a bit more advanced. We also talk about scheduling in the managing project side, but a bit more advanced scheduling over there. And then we go into integration management to understand your integrative role as the project manager within the project and within the organization and within the world that you are in. Okay, so that is, what's it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's obviously eight modules that you then have to complete. Okay, so the format, we've got two main formats formats that we offer the PGD. The one is what we call a modular format, and the other one is what we call a blended format. Modular is you come to campus 4 times a year. You get all your classes over there face to face. You submit your assignments. You do your group work. There's also tests that you write in those times. And then you go home again. And then in the next block, you come and the same thing applies. You do that for 2 years. And once you are done with the second year, you are complete. You can also choose to do that in 1 year, which means that it will just be compressed into one. So what it actually means is if you do the modular in 1 year, on the first term, you'll have responsible leadership and communication management in the same week. So in the morning, we'll have the first legs block, and the afternoon, you'll have your second legs block. So that's on the modular side. On the other side, we have the blended side, which means you are doing it online. I think the first block is actually a face-to-face block, even for the modular guys. And then it is spread out over the term. So the way it works is in the first term, you will do responsible leadership. It's on a Wednesday from 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 8 o'clock. And I think there's 8 sessions. So it's a bit less than the month. So what that means is you're going to do, if you do the blended over 2 years, you're going to have 1 academic session every second week for every term. If you do it over 1 week, you're going to have every week a session on a Wednesday from 8 to 4 every term. Okay. And once you are complete, you are done. So that's what needs to happen. So that's the two. So I hope it makes sense. So the green stuff that you see over here, as well as one of the 2 orange stuff, you're going to do either over 2 years or either over 1 year. If you do it modular, you're going to be on campus for 4 times a year, and you're going to do either 8 in the 1 year or 4 in the 1 year and 4 in the other year. If you do it in a modular, in a blended, you're going to be busy Wednesday afternoon from 4 to 8 every second week. But if you do it over 1 year, it's going to be every week. Okay. I hope that makes sense. If there's any questions, please feel free to just jump into what we've just said. Guys, that's just a summary of what I've already said, so don't worry about that. I've already spoke about that. This is just I mean, we need to talk about this, but it's actually just a bit further than just the practical stuff. In the business school, we've got a culture of group work, a culture of, in my days, we used to call it syndicates. Now we call it groups or teams. So there's going to be quite a lot of team interaction and teamwork, even with the blended groups. And from my experience, what I've seen is that the team cohesion within the blended groups are actually almost better than the team cohesions within the face-to-face groups, because you've got a longer interaction time, interaction within time. Where on the block weeks, you see each other for a block, then you go and you work, and it's sort of live face-to-face, and then online live face. I'm talking about the group work. So the cohesion works, but it works very, very well with the blended teams as well. So there will be some pre-course work, some reading, maybe some pre-assessment, normally just some reading that you have a quiz or 2 to do. Then there's always individual and team assignments. You have to have more than 50% for both. Now, what does it say there? Team assessment less than team assessments less than 50% of the total mark. Yeah, and you have to pass both. So you cannot just pass. Your average mark is more than 50, but your team mark brought you up. So that's also there. There's assignments, there's tests, case studies, presentations, essays, reflective essays. And yeah, so that's we try to keep it as interactive. We try to make it practical. We try to make it fun, but with a baseline of learning behind that. So that is that, and I think I am almost done. That is it, guys. So that is it. Sweet and short. Sweet and short. Are there any questions from the group? Any questions? No questions? Okay.
I have
if
a
there's no-
question. I just
Yes.
wanted to ask, I asked Carl this yesterday as well, and Henry. So that orange one is, you have to choose between the two, right?
Yeah, if I have, yeah, the way I have it, you can choose between organizational behavior or managing risk.
Okay. So my question was, in your second year, if you're doing it blended, are you
Yeah.
able to do that either one of the two in your second year as well, the module?
No. No,
Okay.
you can't. No, that's offered. No. So you have to do it. So are you saying if you want to
So
do
if
the
I-
one in the 1 year and the other in the second year?
Correct.
No, you
Can
can't
do
do
it,
it.
something
It's one
like that.
stream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's just a practical problem, because
Yeah.
these streams are scheduled to be running in the same time. So what that actually means, and that's what I tried to say earlier, you're gonna have if you want to do both, they are going to be offered at the same time in the evenings,
Yeah.
which is
Okay.
not practical. Yeah. No.
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Okay. Then I have another question. I want to do or when I apply, I want to do the RPL. I asked Carl and Henry this as well. Is what can we do to make our RPL
Application
application better?
bit more attractive.
Exactly.
The RPL, I have to say, it's not difficult. It's not difficult. It's just there's so many RPL candidates that and we can only, I think last year we only not approved. We only had like 10 or 20 spaces, or 10 spaces actually. Yeah, 10 spaces. So
Okay.
I would say the best that you can do is your essay. So obviously, if you have the minimum requirements, you have the minimum requirements, but you also have to submit an essay telling us why. So do a serious ChatGPT brainstorm session and ask what is going to let your essay stand out. And relationship works. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but
Yes.
I mean, if you send me an email a month or so before and you say what you just said to me, Kuni, I really want to do this. I have all the requirements. Is there anything that I can, whatever? Then we're aware of you. Can you see? So if at certain stage we're sitting there with two names, two people that I don't know, and I need to choose one, I'm going to choose the one that I know has got the drive and know has got the really wants to do it. So yeah.
Okay.
But nothing's guaranteed, and I have to say that very deliberately.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good. If there's no other questions, I'm gonna close my my background, or not my background. I'm gonna actually stop my screen share. There we go. Awesome. And we want to go into the next phase of this discussion and just make it practically and hear what the industry, what's going on in the industry. And the topic or the theme is rescuing a failing project. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking it might not be good for someone to talk about the fact that they have failing projects. But we always have that. We always have that. So it's actually quite nice. We're sitting with a person who's very close to my heart, Mr. Kyle Hoff. He's working for the city of Cape Town in the project management, in the project environment. And I don't know if you know what's going on in the city of Cape Town. It's unbelievable. The amount of the size of projects that they do, the type of projects that they do is really unbelievable. And it's so nice to have someone like Carl not only coming to a session like this talking to us, but when you do the PGD, Carl will be one of your lecturers as well. So Kyle, that's your introduction. I don't know if I need to say more than that. So Kyle is a project manager by heart. He's working very hard within the city of Cape Town, and he's also a facilitator, a lecturer on our programs. So Kyle, do you want to
Yeah.
say a few words?
No, I think you covered it. I think the one thing I will say is for those that are going to be taking the project management studies for next year and doing it over 1 year, you'll see me over 2 different modules, one being project procurement. I'm dealing with a contract issue at the moment, project procurement, and then there's also project integration management. So those are the 2 modules that you can expect me on. Other than that,
And that's
Kuni, I think maybe just to say, I think sometimes projects need to go wrong for us to learn and for us to improve and reflect. So
absolutely.
not that it needs to go wrong, but I mean, we can always plan for a perfect world, but we live in an imperfect world where Murphy throws things
Absolutely.
in, and I had that actually happening to me this morning, and I'll touch more on that a bit later.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. So Kyle, while we are there, you actually have a very nice case project to talk about some, in terms of this theme.
Yes.
Yeah, and just give us a quick introduction and what went wrong and what's the signs? What's the signs that you see that the project is in trouble?
Yeah, sure. So let me start with, as you said, we are large. We actually, and the mayor's punted this for about 2 years now. We're quite mature in our portfolio management, where we have a pipeline of 10 years worth of projects that we know we want to implement. We control that over a period of 3 years, which is governed by, for those that are in government would know, there's a lot of acts and constitutional things that you need to comply with. But from our space, we manage it on a 3-year budget cycle. And at the moment, we are in year 3 of our 10-year, 120 billion rand capital upgrades that we are
Sure.
working on.
Massive, huh?
And what's interesting is we were at a state of implementing projects, and our capital portfolio would peak at about 5.5 billion year on year, until we actually started focusing and honing in on portfolio management and our project management capability. And over the past, I would say 5 to 8 years, we've now established it to the point where we are able to comfortably spend, and we spent a record-breaking 9.5 billion, and we're targeting 15 billion this year. I think it's 15 billion.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So I mean, for Saudi, that's chump change, but for a municipality like ours,
Yeah.
it's something that is quite competitive. And within that nature, you're dealing with, as Kuni mentioned, projects of various sizes. So you're looking at vehicle purchases. I'm just thinking of our safety and security directorate, where we have that eye in the sky, which is a drone that we procured to actually help combat crime. So it's stuff that's unique and nuanced
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
We have that sky circle that's being constructed, and that's to implement our MyCity bus transport system that we use within the city of Cape Town, and that's going to go through the southern suburbs of Cape Town, so in the impoverished community. So those are like the massive infrastructure, this unique technology projects, and then your run-of-the-mill key project up, stadium or city hall. We just repaired the clock there in the past 15 years. So that's just giving you context. What I'm going to speak to you about now is an upgrade at a facility, which is actually, it's a highly visible project. I think to say a bit more now would be giving it away, but there will be quite a big showcase, I think about July to August next year on this specific project. So it's highly visible, tight deadlines, a lot of pressure from senior management and also the public, because this would benefit us. And I think, Kuni, to what you just asked, those first signs is when there is deadlines that are consistently slipping without any explanation. And I want to focus on the explanation component, where one failure is project communication. And I think that is one of the modules that you are going to cover in the postgrad.
Absolutely.
And without that essential communication, what ends up happening is, as I mentioned, pressure from management. So you have lack of visibility, even with a portfolio, as I mentioned now, as mature as ours. If you are not communicating effectively, that's going to be a clear sign that something is going wrong if you're not explaining why those deadlines are slipping. That then impacts, I mentioned that we have a 3-year budget cycle, so it's public money. We are not just using public money, but also taking out loans to do key upgrades.
Yeah. Yeah.
With those
Yeah.
loans come budget variances. You now taking out the loan and you might slip by a few months. That impacts you. Also, stakeholders were not engaged, and concerns were not being escalated, as I said. And then ultimately that leads to low team morale, because now it's a case of things are piling up. There is pressure. We are just doing tasks, and what ends up happening is those warning signs started to emerge. And because we are a public entity, we also need to deal with tenders and procurement. And we actually ended up having a procurement that failed when it was not supposed to. It was not planned to fail. We had budget that was spent, and sort of poor coordination caused, between supply chain, between the contracts department and our projects department, ended causing this to actually start breaking down and failing.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting if I hear you talk and that's sort of linked back to what I said earlier about our program is that project management is not just about the functional. You can do your scheduling perfectly and your costing and even you've something your risk management and your risk identification, but there's these other things that's got such a big influence on the success of what we do. And what drives that, and that's the stuff that we might not think about I'm going to say on a practical and a functional level.
Yes.
Yeah. So Carl, can I ask another question? So if you start seeing these things bubbling up, obviously, if you're in charge of those, it's a lot of things that happen, and it's so difficult. Where do you start, or how do you, how do you get to the root of what's actually going on? Yeah, it's one thing to things doesn't go wrong, but you have to understand what is the fact, what is leading to the problem.
So, and I think this is now where when you are dealing, so the what went wrong, as you said, the root of that issue, was there wasn't a single issue, but it does come back to what I mentioned earlier about communication, right? And ultimately, as the project manager, you are accountable and responsible. And if you are not communicating effectively to your senior stakeholders, it's going to cause major disruptions. So the one thing that we did was we decided that the project manager that was implementing the projects needs to maybe just take a step back, allow us to come in and diagnose what is actually going on. And we did this war room type scenario where we were like, okay, let's pull everyone in. Now, when a project fails, or when something in a project, one of the key activities on your critical path fails, the critical path is essentially the tasks that need to be done to ensure that your timeline is met according to what you had set out, right? Now, when you consider that, you need to take that step back and then consider, okay, we need to actually have an all hands on deck approach. And this includes having, as I mentioned, the procurement failed, so having supply chain there. So the key custodians or stakeholders need to be in the room. We spoke about supply chain. There was the facilities management, our project leads, our senior executives that needed to actually sit in on the budget planning. And what we essentially did was we stripped away the noise, and looked at, okay, we asked, let me say 4 questions that were asked. What's in the scope, right? So what is it that actually went wrong? What do we need to deliver? Where are the bottlenecks? And what's one thing we can do right now to stabilize this? And when you ask those 4 questions, because what you're then doing is, the traditional implementation of a project is waterfall. And we know the sequential process that you need to take. And then you have the agile approach, which is the 2-week sprints and then going back and feedback loops. And we took a bit of a hybrid approach there, where we considered we know that this is a traditional waterfall approach because there was this happening, but there were contractors on site, and we needed to
Yeah.
just ensure that things were being delivered. But when you take that hybrid approach, you're like, okay, what is it that we need to focus on now, and what can we do to actually deliver on this?
Yeah.
So what was promised versus what's delivered. So scope and delivery check. Our spend, we now know that that is behind. What do we need to do to ensure that we align that again? Our schedule, the milestones that we have, those ones that were realistic, and where we were in terms of our baseline, how do we actually deliver on that? And then looking specifically, I think in that war room scenario is the people. The people is very essential to how we're actually going to get this done. Our resources being financial, intellectual, and then human resources. So the human resources component was actually key in this. And then I think most important out of all of this is decision authority. Do you actually have the authority to make the decisions? Is leadership present there? And that's essentially what we then did. And in about a span of a week, we had leadership in the room. We looked at different scenarios in terms of what if this thing gets appealed? What if it fails and we need to go into a worst case scenario? What does it mean for our budget? And actually, what do we need to do? And when I say all of these things, I just want to emphasize you don't need a 100-page review to actually get to these key things. It's about
Yeah.
recording those decisions. And then again, those 4 things, it's your scope, your schedule, spend, and people. Now,
Yeah, so
in
what I,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry,
Yeah, so
continue.
yeah, absolutely is what I hear is that you get at a place, especially with those very complex big projects, is there's just so much that's going wrong and so much that goes on that you don't, and you say, but let's just step back and go back to the basics and see what is what is the stuff that really care, even if it's
Yes.
not that complex or complicated, and start focusing on those things. So I want to say almost like so you get to a point, say, okay, now I know what to focus on. And I guess the next step is saying, okay, but now that we know what's wrong and what's going on, we can sort of say, okay, but what's the stuff that I can do now for those quick wins, and
Yeah.
get the traction for the longer term success factors and milestones that we want to reach, or
Yeah.
what, yeah.
So this quick win. So let me start with I actually was asked to drive this. Being in the role that I am, I oversee a portfolio for project support within the city. And with that in mind, one of the things was that stabilization that you spoke about. So what do I need to do to stabilize? And for myself personally, I froze all other work. And when I say froze all other work, I actually, this was an agreement. Again, leadership is key here. So because we were supporting a key stakeholder, the CFO in this, I delegated some of my work. Some of my work I've pushed out to later, and I needed to just ensure that that was done. So that was on a personal front. On the project front, we also then needed to just, in that span of a week, freeze all new changes until these issues were under control. So we needed to clarify the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves right now, and looking at our scope to ensure that we are escalating the critical tasks to our sponsor, and that's quite key, the sponsor being the CFO, for immediate decisions. So when you have that key buy-in from your stakeholders, specifically your sponsor, it's about then ensuring that you get those decisive changes, and then also looking at your plan now holistically, because this issue has materialized, one that was not expected on the plan. And now it's about rebaselining that plan with those achievable milestones, if I can call them that. And some of them, just to give an example, was we had to go and cancel our specific tender process and then re-advertise. Now,
Yo,
usually
yo.
that takes a space of a month to a month and a half just in the compliance world that we live within. However, because it was such a contentious project, something that was of need, we managed to bring in, again, leadership to ensure that timelines were fast-tracked. So this isn't the norm. It's now, because it's a failing project that we're rescuing, we needed to just put more energy into it. So things that typically take a month and a half now needs to take 2 to 3
Yeah,
days.
fast track, absolutely.
Exactly. So freezing all those additional scope requests for additional electrical infrastructure and all of those things were then put on the back burner. We looked at, okay, what is it again? Speaking to that nice to haves versus the must haves, looking at, okay, we're stripping things out of the scope to ensure that we can still deliver what is pertinent for this financial year, and ensuring that we stop the bleeding first.
Yeah.
And then from there, if I were to use that, stop the bleeding,
Yeah.
and then from there moving on.
Yeah, my wife's a nurse, so I remember when we met each other at university, and they always said, just stop the bleeding, just make sure that it's everything's stable, and then you can start looking at all the other stuff. And it's almost an analogy that you can use in the project world as well.
Yeah,
fabulous, fabulous. Yeah, so I mean, further to that, so you're talking about team impact and building trust, and in the long term, those conversations.
Team impact. So I think when things go wrong, it's about ensuring that, especially because I was now someone that was not on the project, and now stepping in to try and save this project.
Yeah.
It's about first establishing trust with the team itself. And one of the things that I'll speak about in project integration management is Tuckman stages of team development, where you form, storm, norm, and perform. Now, I had to go through all of that very quickly to ensure that we get this back on track. And what I did was number one was, I'm always someone that's transparent. So acknowledging that we're not where we need to be, and I want to help us to get back to where we need to be. So you spoke about earlier about the low, I think it was low hanging fruit. That's what I heard in my mind. But it's about securing those small early wins. So okay, so we need to cancel this thing. We know that it's going to take us a week, and then they need to review it for a week. What do I need to do to ensure that we can maybe do it by tomorrow? What input do I need from you so that we're getting those build those early momentums to rebuild confidence? And then I think what's important then is reestablishing communication lines. So the one quick thing that was, and it's so simple yet so effective, is creating a WhatsApp group. Like just creating a WhatsApp group. As soon as something happens, you quickly report it to the senior people, and okay, this is they see it, because we're not sharing bad news or good news. We're sharing news that needs to be responded to, not reacted to, responded to. And then by that, we then clarifying when we are out of that stopping the bleeding phase, we're then clarifying accountability. So each person knows what they need to do, but also what success looks like. So through that, I was, over the past, I would say 2 months, have engaged, built confidence, instilled a sense of leadership that I think was missing, in communication, and then re-engaging those stakeholders. So visibly, so that the team sees that support that's coming from the top, knowing that a demoralized team won't rescue your project. A transparent team, and with transparent leadership, you will get that team to actually buy in. Exactly.
Yeah, I think Carl, before I want you to finish up saying what's your main takeaways, and what can you sort of, just a few words on that. But before we sort of do that, let's hear if there's any questions from you guys, or any comments, even any exposure that you guys had to projects and trying to rescue something that was going into the wrong direction. Yeah, anybody can comment. Are there any questions?
I think I heard something a few years ago
Cliff,
that
thank you. That's great.
that when people are trying to make decisions, if there is like a 5 million rand decision that needs to be made, they usually discuss that quickly and it's out of the way. And then they spend the next 30 minutes discussing the 4,000 rand canteen budget. So in your so in the level of magnitude of projects that you're doing, have you found the challenges to be different when you're dealing with a mega project and smaller projects? And then what similarities have you found?
So just to repeat your question so I understand it, you're asking, are there differences between the decisions and complexity within a mega project versus the run-of-the-mill projects? Is that correct, Cliff?
Yeah. Or like, for instance, with the education you get from the PG dip and the MBA, once you have the framework, does it then
Yes.
become easier regardless of the size?
No, I
Good
think
question.
it's a very good question. It's a deep question, and I'm going to attempt to answer, and then Kuni, you can support. You see, I'm pulling into top leadership, Cliff. So I think the framework is important. It's the foundational aspect. Because, and let me answer it actually using terminology that we'll use that you'll be exposed to at the business school. We are in a VUCA world, a world that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Now, in a space like that, it's being compounded even more so by AI, right? By machine learning, by automation, by all of these things that means that we need to be more confident in the decisions that we need to make, right? So navigating that uncertainty means that there is some form of framework that we need to depend on, right? That responsible leadership, understanding the world that now comes in, gives you that good context in terms of the world in which you are operating in. So the competency required to actually look at it from a perspective of what is the organizational response that needs to be done here is important. So I'm just setting the scene now for answering your question. Is it different? Yes, it is. And your larger projects are going to be more complex. There are going to be challenges and uncertainties with them, especially with and I say this now from a built environment point of view, the complexities and requirements and legislation that you need for a permanent desalination plant is going to be different to just resurfacing a road. So with those complexities in mind, you need to just understand that your level of experience and exposure will need to be different. So I'm not going to put someone new on the desalination plant, right? It's this, but then from an educational point, and let me translate it back to education, the PG DIP is a good informant. As what Kuni said earlier, also the project management, the one that was developed, is like a mini MBA that you're getting exposed to. And I'll speak quickly to the project integration management module. With that one, Kuni mentioned that it's about understanding the integration of how you're actually delivering on a project within for yourself, for the project itself in your organization. What I'm teaching students there is to be more strategic in how they actually respond and plan their projects and think about projects when they are implementing their projects. It's a long-winded answer. Kuni, do you want to add to that?
No, I'm with you. I think there's a very strong drive in the PMI for tailoring, and tailoring can mean so much. I sort of my external to the City of Cape Town answer to the question is that we need to realize that yes, certain stuff is low level enough, to make a decision and go ahead and solve the problem on the floor. But there's certain things that you're going to say, but listen, this is too big for me. I need to move that up into the chain and take the right, the right processes and follow the right, because there's personal accountability in there, and there's company accountability and all sorts of stuff that links to that. Now, Cliff, thank you. Very good question, and very nicely answered, Kyle. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Anything else? A comment or anything?
I actually added the whole scenario today. So we're working on working in Stellenbosch on student accommodation, and we had to make a decision by either sacrificing a whole 12, 13 meter fair-faced about 3 meter high wall, beautiful wall, or waterproofing, because there was a lack of communication between two parties. So yeah, so we had to make something happen, and we had to make the decision there. As everything, the lights and everything was already ordered, so you can't just send back, and the wall is built, and all of this. So yeah, so I had that
No, that's
situation
nice.
today. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. You know, I've been in project management training and lecturing and whatever for a very long time, and you realize at a certain stage that you know my mindset was always project management is this perfect world, this perfect system, this perfect, and then you have these isolated problems and stuff that goes wrong. But it's almost the opposite. Project management is everything but perfect, and it's always these problems. And if you are lucky in between, there's a nice process and something to follow. Yeah. Thanks, Miguel. Thank you for adding to that. Anybody else? Any comment or question? Anything?
There was one in the chat just asking about
Oh,
new
the chat,
project
yes.
Cape Castle. And I just commented to say no, it wasn't that. It's a generator project at one of our strategic or for one of our strategic assets.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Okay, if there's nothing anymore, then yeah, I think we can start finishing up. Kyle, do you want to just, if you know, the last question I said is, if you in an elevator, you see you're going from the first floor of the F&B building to the, I don't know what is that, 24. I don't know where we are in Cape Town. Over here in the Middle East, you've got floors in the 40. And you have
Wow.
2.5 minutes or 5 minutes or just a quick, you know, to
Dr.
say
Quinny.
what is that you took out of this project so far, that will change the way you do things in the future.
Can you
And
guys
maybe
hear
then,
me?
oh, Henry, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
I just wanted
Henry.
to know. I just wanted to know. So I know Carl, you've been speaking about you know projects within the city and all about stuff. So
Yeah.
say for example, how relevant or is project management? For example, you're working at a Vodacoms and those, you know, a little bit more corporate or private organization and
Mm-hmm.
not specifically within the built environment.
Yeah. You mean the program?
Say again?
Henry, you mean the linking that back to what the program offer, no?
Yeah, of course, yeah, of course,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
a lot of people are engineers. They work for construction companies,
absolutely.
etc.
That's good.
But how about the guy that works for, yeah, like for any corporate company at Amazon, for example? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, guys, it's the one of the reasons why I like project management so much is that it is so application well, it's
Applicable.
applicable and applied in so many places. Actually, for the guys in my class today, I said one of the best project managers that I know is my wife, who's a nurse. She's working half time with a and she can apply. I'm actually visiting my brother-in-law and my sister is a teacher. I promise you, she will take a lot out of the PGD in project management. And so I mean that's not two low-level examples. Not and again, this I want to go back to saying that this isn't a program that sits with the civil engineering department. So yes, we're talking about project management, but it's a lot about construction actually, or something that sits with industrial engineering or economics or anything. It sits within the business school, which means it's not specific to any industry, and your value that you're going to get out of that is anywhere. Now, I mean, project management in general is like that, but I mean, for this program specifically, is I think the way of thinking about the integrated organization and the value. I always start my stuff saying the value of projects in the organization and the organization's value to the projects, and those links. So definitely the value is both sides. Yeah, no matter what industry you are working in.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, Kuni, and like the case studies and work that we do specifically in the module that I'm currently teaching. I I don't even think there's one that's construction related. It's actually more business related, as you
Absolutely.
mentioned. So it actually forces and exposes people to the different industries. And I think one of the things that I punt the most in classes is that this program is a co-created learning experience. So you're going to learn from your peers
Yeah.
in the room with you as well. Kuni mentioned earlier about how you grow with your team, blended or modular. You're going to be exposed to people in different industries, and you're going to see how they are doing projects, the challenges
Yeah.
that they have, and that's going to also help to think and help you reflect on how you do things.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Henry. Thank you for steering that in that direction as well. Yeah, Carl, so your 40 stores has just now moved down to a 3-story lift.
Yes, that's fine.
No, that is just yeah, I mean, it would be nice just to hear yeah, what you know, because I want to make it specific to this situation that you were in or busy in, and what you take from there, and maybe how that the business school equipped you for the decisions that you made in that process.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, let me start with how the business school equipped me is, and I actually answered it a bit with Cliff's your question that you asked, Cliff. In how my thinking has changed. I'm also a lot more confident in front of senior stakeholders. So those senior stakeholders, when I speak to them, I give them a sense of comfort and confidence because I'm comfortable to be
Absolutely.
integrated in the detail, but then also enough to know that they don't need all of the detail. They just need what is it going to mean. So the refocusing on the budget and the procurement essentials to stabilize the project. And then from there, looking at the more systemic issues and trying to address those, because this project didn't just fail in isolation. There were systemic issues that need to be addressed. And we need to also go and look at that.
Okay, perfect answer. And I think that's not just you. That's also what I hear from some of the other alumni in that I've been talking to and had interaction with. And that's the thing. If you have confidence in what you know and what the what the influence of factors is within the world that we are in, then that really talks a lot about a lot. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting to the end. I want to almost say one last time when we are here, if there's anything else you want to ask, maybe more practical about the program or anything that we offer, you've got your last chance now. You've got one story left to go on. Okay, so guys, from my side, it would be a great pleasure. And I can only say that for Miguel and Cliff at this moment, to see your faces next year in one of the programs. The others, hopefully I see your names there. We are there to ask any questions. We've got Henry from almost want to say from the marketing institutional side. We've got me from the academic side. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send that on. And yeah, good luck if you good luck with the route to get there. Henry, I don't know if you want to sort of say a final thing before we go.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, if anybody wants to just reach out to me a bit further, yeah, they've got my details.
Henry, on my side, you are very quiet. I don't know if the rest also experience it like that. Can you guys hear Henry? Okay, I think
I'm not sure what's the issue with my.
That is better. That is
There
better.
we go. That's better.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I just said that if anybody has any queries or just want to find out a little bit more, they should let us. Yeah, they can just contact me. They all have my contact details. Applications for the schools does close on the 31st of October, as well as RPL.
So that's now, no? You guys need to, yeah.
It's around the corner. I do suggest that do not wait for the 31st. Rather make like the 28th or around about the of October your benchmark, because yeah, these courses can fill up quite quickly, and the project management is I'm not sure. I think it is our biggest PG dip or it's around about there, Dr. Kuni. I'm not sure.
What's the question?
I think the PG Dub project management is probably one of our bigger PG Dubs that we have.
Oh,
So
yes,
yeah,
yes. It's a big program. Yeah. So there's lots
Yeah.
of enrollments. Yeah.
Yeah, and just out of previous discussions, the MBA in project management will soon be our #1 MBA as well. The way
Wow.
things are
Fantastic.
going. So yeah, thank you guys for
Yeah.
joining, and
Yeah.
Carl and Zainab, thank you once again as well for your
Yeah.
your assistance as well. So yeah, everybody's got my details, and yeah, I'll just leave the last couple of moments for you, Dr. Kuni and Carl.
Yeah, so from my side, thank you very much. Thanks, Kyle. And thank you for everybody that joined us. Like I said, my dream is to see you next year or the year after that in our programs. Kyle, you can have
Same
the
here.
last voice.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I did share in the chat there that for those that are going to enroll, I will share about this project. I'm sure it's going to make the news and media. It's going to be quite big next year, so we'll see. And then also just to note about it being so big, I think it was the Future of Work or World Economic Forum that said we will require an additional 88 million professionals in project-orientated roles,
Absolutely.
not project managers per se, but it is such a skill, necessary skill in the future of work that they're noting and forecasting that it's essential for that. So with that in mind, I leave you to your applications. All
There
the
we
best,
go.
everyone.
There we go. The world needs us. Okay, guys, thank you very much. I'm going to log off now. Have a good evening and have a good weekend tomorrow. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks.
Cheers,
you.
everyone.
Bye.